Two little girls, a quiet roadside egg stand. One summer morning, and then nothing. In the blink of an eye, Nora and Cora Whitfield vanished without a trace from their family farm in rural Iowa. No footprints, no screams, just a cash box left behind, and the kind of silence that tears through a mother's soul. For 3 years, their parents were haunted by suspicion, grief, and the unbearable unknown. Then one morning, a man magnet fishing in the creek made a catch that would expose a horror no one could imagine. Welcome to Echo Stories. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories. Part 1. The Can in the Creek. It was a typical Iowa morning. Grace Whitfield knelt in her garden, sweat on her brow, dirt under her fingernails. Just another Tuesday. Just another day pushing forward through grief that had never left. The sound of tires on gravel caught her attention. She looked up. Sheriff Daniels' cruiser was pulling in. Not alone. Two unmarked vehicles followed, unfamiliar men and women in suits. Her stomach twisted. Law enforcement didn't show up like this without reason. Sheriff Daniels had been her friend for years. He bought eggs from her daughters, sat behind them in church pews. But today his face was different, grim, formal. "Grace," he said gently, "can we talk inside?" In the kitchen, surrounded by the ghosts of laughter that used to fill the house, she sat at the table as one of the detectives pulled out a tablet. "This morning," he began, "a magnet fisher found something in Cedar Creek. An old milk can. When he pulled it up," he paused and then said it. "There were human remains inside. Small remains. We believe they may be your daughter, Nora." Grace went cold. She saw the rusted metal on the screen, faded logo, their farm's name, their family's cow drawing. Number, that was one of their cans. The detective swiped to another image. A blue tarp, yellow stripes, bones too small to be anything but a child. Grace couldn't breathe. Across the yard, her husband Garrett saw the police cars and came running, demanding answers. When he heard the words, he just sat down, quiet, broken. The police believed it was Nora. And they had one terrifying question. Did the can come from this property? The detectives needed to search. And suddenly, Grace and Garrett, the grieving parents, were now suspects. Part 2. Suspects in their own home. The search began immediately. White-suited forensic techs swept across the Whitfield property like a slow-moving wave, photographing, measuring, bagging soil samples near the barn and root cellar. The same barn where Nora and Cora used to play hide-and-seek now stood behind yellow tape. Grace stood on the porch, watching strangers comb through her life. The detective had said it plainly. The milk can came from their farm. That meant this land, this home, could be a crime scene. That meant someone had killed Nora, and it might have happened here. Garrett, furious but composed, called their family lawyer, Sarah Thornton. When she arrived, heels crunching in the gravel, she didn't waste time. "This warrant is built on one piece of evidence?" she snapped at the detectives. "A milk can anyone could have stolen or bought at auction?" But the detectives were calm. "We're not accusing. We're investigating. We need to know if the can was stored here, if anyone could have taken it, even years ago." Then came the hardest part. They wanted DNA samples, statements, but Sarah shut it down. "Not today," she said firmly. "They just found out their daughter's remains were discovered in a creek. You want to talk? You come back tomorrow." And so the officers left, but not without taking photographs of everything. Grace's kitchen, the chicken coop, even the wooden swing on the porch where the girls used to sit with popsicles in the summer. That night, Grace and Garrett sat in silence, the kind that feels heavier than shouting. Then, a knock. It was Walter Brennan, their neighbor of 20 years, a man who'd known their girls since they were babies. He had come to check on them. "I heard the sirens. Grace, Garrett, what happened?" "They found Nora," Garrett said, "in the creek, in one of our old milk cans." Walter turned pale. "Oh, Lord." He sat with them, offered to feed the animals, handle the deliveries, said he'd take care of things until they could breathe again. A kind man, A helpful man. Too helpful? As the sun set over the fields, Grace couldn't help but notice. Walter knew exactly where everything was. Everything. Part 3. The tarp behind the feed barrel. The next day brought no peace. The police were gone, but the tape still fluttered around the barn like a scar. Grace sat on the porch swing. Garrett stood by the railing, arms crossed, staring into the fields. Neither of them had slept. Then Walter pulled into the driveway again, as he had so many times before. "I fed the horses, locked the coop," he said softly. "Grain's running low, though. You've got a delivery tomorrow, but I can spare a few sacks from my barn. Come by and grab them if you need." Garrett started to offer, but Grace interrupted. "I'll go." She needed to move, to do something. Minutes later, she was in Walter's pickup, driving the short stretch down the gravel road to his farm. His old red barn loomed ahead, worn but solid. Inside, the smell of hay and feed hit her like memory. They lifted the first bag of grain together, the kind of physical work that used to make her feel alive. Then she saw it, tucked behind a rusted cultivator, a blue tarp, faded yellow stripes. Her breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be, but it was. The same kind of tarp the detectives showed her, the same pattern that had wrapped her baby's bones. Grace stumbled backward, vision tunneling. Walter caught her before she hit the ground. "Whoa there," he said. "You hit your head. Here, sit." He handed her a rag for the cut on her forehead. Then with eerie calm, he rolled the tarp tighter and shoved it out of sight. "I'm sorry you saw that," he murmured. "I use those for everything. Truck beds, covering equipment. Didn't even think." Grace nodded numbly, but her heart was thundering in her chest. It could be coincidence, but maybe it wasn't. That night, as Garrett slept on the couch in emotional exhaustion, Grace couldn't stop thinking. Walter had those tarps. He'd known where everything was on their farm. He'd lost his own son, lived alone, and lived right next door when Nora and Cora vanished. What if she had just walked into the belly of the truth? Part 4. The drawing in the barn. It was well past midnight when Grace saw the headlights again, moving along the edge of Walter's land. They stopped behind his barn, lights off. She knew that rhythm, Walter doing late-night chores, just as he always had. Only now Grace couldn't stop wondering what those routines were really hiding. By morning, she couldn't shake it. Garrett was still sleeping, lost in grief. So Grace decided to walk over. She'd ask about borrowing Walter's trailer for Nora's funeral. It was a simple reason to stop by. Something normal, but what she found was anything but. Walter was startled when she arrived. Nervous. He wiped his hands on his coveralls, tried to smile. "Of course," he said. "Take the trailer as long as you need." He led her to the back of the barn, showing her the hitch and the tie-down straps. And that's when she saw it. His denim jacket, tossed casually over a hay bale. Wallet, keys, and a folded piece of paper sticking out of the pocket. A drawing. She reached for it before she could think. 2 stick figures. A little girl with brown hair labeled Clara, holding hands with a tall man labeled Daddy. Hearts all around them. The girl's blue flower dress looked just like one Cora used to wear. And the handwriting? It was Cora's. Grace's blood ran cold. Her legs almost gave out, but she kept her face calm. "Thanks, Walter," she said evenly. "I'll send Garrett to pick up the trailer." She turned to go, but Walter's voice stopped her. "Grace," he said. When she turned, he was holding a shotgun. "You saw the drawing," he said flatly. "I saw you." Her heart thudded. "Walter," she started. "Don't lie to me." He gestured with the barrel. "Walk." Grace moved. Every step took her deeper into the barn. "She calls me Daddy now," Walter said behind her. "Took a while, but she's happy. She's safe." Then his voice dropped. "She's alive, Grace." And Grace knew without question what she was about to see would change everything. Part 5. Beneath the barn. The wall looked solid, but Walter reached for a hidden latch, one Grace had never noticed in all her years visiting that barn. A door creaked open. Wooden stairs led down into darkness. "Down," Walter ordered, the shotgun steady in his hands. Grace descended, one shaking step at a time. The air was colder here, damp, thick with the scent of earth and something else, something human. At the bottom, another door. Walter opened it. Grace's breath hitched. It was a room. Not a cell, not a dungeon. A room, pink walls, butterflies, bookshelves filled with children's novels, a desk, a bed, a handmade quilt. And at that desk, a girl, long brown hair, slender frame. She looked up, and Grace felt the world tilt beneath her. "Cora," she whispered. "Baby." But the girl flinched. "Who is she?" the girl asked, her voice small. "Daddy, who is this lady?" Grace's knees buckled. Cora didn't recognize her. "She calls me Daddy," Walter said calmly. "She's Clara now." Grace turned to him, voice raw. "Where is Nora?" Walter's face darkened. "She got sick 2 years ago. Pneumonia, I think. I tried everything, but I couldn't take her to a doctor. They would have taken Clara. I had to protect her." Grace swayed. She wanted to scream, to weep, but she stayed still. For Cora. Suddenly, footsteps above. Boots on the barn floor. "Walter, you in here?" It was Garrett's voice. Grace's hope surged. She opened her mouth to shout, but the shotgun jabbed her ribs. "You say a word and I'll shoot him. Then you." Walter backed toward the stairs, locking the door behind him. She was trapped, her daughter across the room, terrified, confused. And then, footsteps above, voices rising, a struggle. Suddenly the door flung open. Grace ran. Garrett was fighting Walter. The shotgun skidded across the floor. She grabbed it, then bolted for the house. She called 911, told them everything. Minutes later, sirens. Walter was arrested, and Cora, now Clara, was safe, but not whole. She didn't remember Grace. Called Walter Daddy. Believed her family died in a car crash. 3 years of lies, of brainwashing, of stolen identity. Now Cora begins the long road back to truth, to healing. As for Grace and Garrett, they've got their daughter back, but she doesn't know them. Not yet. And in the echo of every memory, there's one name that never leaves them. Nora. If this story shook you, share it. Someone out there might be watching a neighbor and missing the signs. Like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. What would you do if this happened in your town? Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the worst monsters wear the friendliest smiles.